In this course, I'm going to share with you all the steps, best practices, and processes to hiring great people. It all begins here. Discussed that in the previous course on recruiting great people. Now we're to the point where we've got the interview set up and it's time to start the selection process. But again, like many companies, if not most companies that I've worked with, we've worked with, they do not have a very robust interviewing process, much less that their decision makers in the hiring process have been trained on the proper approach with the proper tools of interviewing. Most people interviewing today that I come across have never been trained formally on how to interview for the right candidate. So we're going to take you through all kinds of great thought processes, provide some amazing tools to you that we've used for decades successfully. That is the approach that many very large Fortune 500 companies utilize who are highly successful in the hiring process. We're going to share those with you. If that intimidates you a little bit, don't be, because hiring's hiring. Whether you're hiring for Amazon or you're hiring for your company, which is likely much smaller than Amazon, it's the same process. And it comes down to your success is determined by the success of the people who report to you. And the better process that you've established to hire great people, the more likely you are to be successful in your role. It all starts there. The best product and plans in the world are only as good as the execution of that product or plan or service. It's all about the people. No matter what business you're in the people business. And so let's get that part right. Our goal in all this is to make sure you understand, one, that getting it wrong, well, it hurts. It's costly. It's inefficient. It slows you down. It can potentially damage customer relationships if you've got the wrong people in the wrong seats. Getting good help is hard. However, if I promise you, if you use this process, your likelihood of hiring better, improved, longer lasting, higher retention level people will come from this course. I don't want to oversell it. You won't be 100%. Nothing's 100%. I've never been 100%, but I can tell you, you're going to improve your hiring success dramatically if you follow the steps that we share in this course. Let me take you back. I know this has happened to me. Let me see if this happened to you. And every time I teach this course to a room full of people, it gets a little bit of a chuckle and an agreement. Have you ever hired somebody and they were just the next best thing? They were the perfect fit. They were going to fill your role absolutely spot on. You hired a winner. And then something happened. And they started. It may have not been on the first day, but within 30, 45 days, all of a sudden, this ends up being who you hired. This is who showed up for work. I know it's happened to me. I can write volumes on me personally making this mistake until I discovered, honed, and perfected the process I'm sharing with you, because it eliminated, for the most part, this situation where this unusual person that I don't know how I even hired this person, because that is not who I interviewed. This is a complete surprise to me that this ineffective troublemaker, whatever the descriptor is, has come to work for me. I was surprised. Let's eliminate some of those surprises. So what you're going to learn in this course, I'm going to go through some of the most common mistakes, not all the mistakes, but the most common mistakes that we see over and over again. Maybe you're making some of them. We want to make sure that you're thinking about eliminating those mistakes. I'm going to introduce to you the concept of behavior-based interviews. Like I said in the beginning, most people have not been trained on the proper techniques of interviewing. I'm going to give you the foundational elements. It's then going to be up to you to start using the tools and the processes and the mindset I'm going to share with you. Start applying it and creating a new improved process that's based on behavior-based versus experience-based interviews. I think you're going to find that a game changer. And even if you believe today that you're using an effective behavior-based interview process, I bet I'm going to add some elements throughout this course that will help you hone and improve your current interviewing process. And then most importantly, there is a ton of tools attached to this course. Please go to the downloads, download the course, download the tools, download the assessments. We've given you a lot of information and a lot of highly valuable tools for you to up your hiring game. Because it comes down to you want to avoid making the bad hires. Understand that it's not one size fits all. This process is going to become your process. If you're a manufacturing company, it may take on different elements than a service-based organization. If you're hiring salespeople, that's going to be a different, slightly process than hiring an accounting person. It's not one size fits all. And a lot of it comes back to really two key elements. You, the boss, the manager, the person who's going to be responsible for the success of this individual. What's your style? What are you looking for? What have been the key elements for success in the past? We're going to help you identify all that and then start utilizing that as part of your interview process. And the second thing is, what is your industry? What is your company? What is your culture require for a good fit? And we've got to make sure that that's well defined to you and that you're interviewing and selecting the right people who fit perfectly into that culture and environment. More detail to follow. Within each role, the process is standardized. And it is what you're going to learn today is consistent, it's objective, it's repeatable. It's the habit, it's the protocol that if you follow this time in, time out, every single time, don't shortcut it, don't skip steps, follow it perfectly, your likelihood of that devil showing up for work for you is highly unlikely. That mistake is highly unlikely to be hired. You're going to improve your batting average dramatically in the people that you hire. So let's talk about some of those common mistakes. See if you're guilty of any of these. First one is not sticking to your minimum requirements. Too often, and I've done this in the past, I know I was guilty of this, fall in love with candidates before they've even seen them, or they get so locked in on this great resume and great background that the interview just becomes a formality. This is the perfect person because they got all the background and all the requirements. And I got to tell you, that will burn you to the point of embarrassment. I can give you examples where I created a bias, and you do the same thing. I created a bias before this person ever showed up for the interview. And so during the course of the interview, I was just looking for confirmation of why to hire them. And I did. And that devil showed up for work 30 or 45 days later. I made a mistake. Not every time, but enough that I've included this as one of the mistakes in here. Be careful of creating a hiring bias based on a resume. In fact, when I see somebody, what I've taught myself to do, and I've taught many others to do as well, and they find this very very valuable, is as soon as you get really interested, this is my top candidate. Before you interview them, you've got to recognize that you've already determined a very positive outcome for this person. Change your mindset to, I need to be finding why not to hire this person during the course of the interview, versus confirming what I've already decided as to why to hire this person. Reverse that bias and make sure that you're going in looking for reasons not to hire this person you've already fallen in love with. Second, as part of the minimum requirements, there are things that you can train people and there are things that you cannot train people. And it's very important as part of your standards that you have, and we're going to get into more detail on this, very defined, hard standards on the person, the background, the non-trainables that you're willing to hire. But if you haven't identified those, it's a shot in the dark. We're going to help you identify those in further into the course. Set those expectations and do not violate your own standards for the quality of individual. You are better off not having anybody in the position. It's proven time in and time out. It's better that you extend your pain slightly and leave that opening unfilled rather than run the risk of putting the wrong person into that position. You're just repeating the pain of having to hire somebody again. They're either going to be ineffective, they're going to be a troublemaker at work, they're going to create more work for you. Take your time, get it right. There was times in my corporate career that we would rather have a position left unfilled rather than put the wrong person or wing it or take a chance on somebody. We would not allow our standards to be broken, and we were one of the most successful companies on the planet, not only in our industry, but in engagement and turnover. We had single-digit turnover in a company of thousands and thousands of people. It can be done. These approaches that I'm sharing with you are those very same approaches. Hiring too fast, being in a rush. I've got to get this position hired. And so I just need to get it done. The first person that can fog a mirror really well, I'm going to put in the position. Not that you would ever do that, but often we fast track a candidate or we fast track the recruiting and hiring process to get the position filled because you don't want to do the extra work, or it's creating additional issues for other employees. So you just want to get that pain behind you. Be very careful of that, because rushing into it will lead you to making hiring mistakes that you don't want to. There are lots of pre-employment assessments out there that you need to be utilizing. As I mentioned in the recruiting course, there are pre-employment assessments that most of the major job posting sites allow you to use. LinkedIn, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, etc. Utilize those as part of your recruiting process. As you get a little deeper into the process, you may want to have some skills, intelligence, or behavior-based skill sets or assessments that are available to you. The few $100 you might spend on just your top candidates, just the 2 or 3 that you're really interested in, will help you make much better hiring decisions, especially on the behavior-based or the personality assessments. That helps you to benchmark individuals into the role properly. We are often fooled in the interview and are not astute enough to understand that this person has shortcomings, or their passion or aptitude is not the best suited for the role that we're interviewing for. It doesn't make them a bad person, just makes them a bad fit for your role. That's where we use DISC a lot. They're available through us. We're going to talk a little bit more about that whole tool later in the course, but getting a behavior-based DISC, Briggs-Myers, whatever you want to use, DISC is, to me and all my experience, has been the most effective. And we can provide those for you. It reduces your margin of error in a lot of ways. It allows you to benchmark much better fits. And again, it won't make you 100% accurate, but it's going to raise your success factor, your success quotient on hiring great people. So DISC is awesome. Almost every one of my clients use, not almost every one of my clients use it. Once they see the value of this, they continue to use it in many different ways, but it's really great in the hiring process. Some people have self-esteem issues about the size or the type of company that they are managing or working for, or even own if you're an owner taking this course. Hey, there's advantages. In fact, it's very attractive to be a smaller company. It's certainly attractive to be a bigger company. Different strokes for different folks. Be prepared to sell, understand, capture, have the talking points for the advantages, the values of working for your company, especially if you're a smaller company. Eliminate that self-esteem issue. Who wants to work for my little tiny company? A lot of people is the answer. Reason why you may be struggling with that is you don't know how to sell it. And if you have the talking points around the advantages of working for you, around independence and growth and close management and a family atmosphere, all those kind of descriptors are really valuable, and make sure you're prepared to share those with the candidates that you're interviewing as part, especially the ones as part of the closing and bringing these folks on board, because you're likely to have some competition for great candidates out there. How do you stand out? Toot your own horn. This is your time. Just like it's their time to toot their horn during the course of an interview, you need to be able to be prepared with talking points, scripted to some point that you've memorized. But first, you've got to identify the great reasons that somebody would have in working for your organization. This one is one that almost everybody stops and says, well, I haven't thought about that before. Almost everybody. Some of you do this. But for those of you who don't, I strongly encourage you is utilize role playing as part of your interview process. There's so many people who talk a great game, who say they have very effective written and communication skills, or they have a high level of expertise in Excel or a certain software. As part of your interview process, have them show you. If you're hiring customer service people, they may have very nice personalities. Well, let's find out, how do they sound over the phone? Have a role play design for them to be under a little bit of pressure with a difficult customer. How are they going to handle that? And I know they've never worked for your company ever before, but you'll very quickly stress test them and see how quickly they can think on their feet. Will they be perfect? No. But the ones who are going to crumble and do a horrible job, you'll eliminate quickly. Have the role plays. I've hired thousands of sales positions. Every single person we ever interviewed for sales, we ran a role play, and it wasn't the sell me this pen role play. It was sell me our product. And they weren't prepared for that. They knew nothing about our product. But I can tell you, it was a game changer, both positively and negatively, in some of the selections we made. In fact, many people we hired in sales had never sold before in their life, but they were gifted in communication. Many people who were very experienced in sales, when we asked them to sell our product to us cold, they were horrible salespeople. They did not follow an approach the way we were ever going to be okay. So incorporate role plays, whether it's customer service, accounting, a software issue they claim that they know very well, some of the basics of Windows or Apple or Adobe, any of those things, have them show you. Give them the opportunity to prove themselves. It will up your hiring success quotient. In our next video, we're going to talk about the best practices for hiring the right human. I'm going to show you in this course the single biggest game changer you're going to come across in learning to properly interview, which is behavior-based interviewing.